at the end of the day, like really understanding like why you're doing something and having a really strong foundation, and then that personal belief that comes from having a value set, like all of that can be wrapped into your endurance pursuits. It can also be wrapped into like your entrepreneurial pursuits. It can also be wrapped into like just how you live your life and how you carry yourself on a day-to-day basis.
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. This episode is brought to you by Superfiliate, the affiliate platform I've been recommending for years. Look, I've worked with just about every affiliate platform out there, from both on the brand side and on the creator or partner side, and Superfiliate is hands down the easiest one I've ever used. From setup to tracking to payouts, it just works. No clunky dashboards, no confusing workflows, just clean, simple tools that help you drive results. If you're a brand looking to scale partnerships, Superfiliate makes it so easy to launch and grow your affiliate program. And most importantly, get buy-in and action from your partners. Take it from me. Empower your customers and creators with co-branded landing pages with their own user-generated content, provide cash and store credit rewards, gifts, and much more. If you're tired of overcomplicated and unnecessarily expensive platforms, do yourself a favor and check out superfiliate.com. That's superfiliate.com and tell them I sent you. I'm happy to make a connection as well. And welcome back to the Long Run Labs podcast. We have Troy Meadows joining from Asheville, North Carolina, a place I love very much, and a beard that I am quite impressed by for those who will eventually see some clips of this episode on either YouTube or Instagram. Troy, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Oh, John, no worries. It's my pleasure to be on. This is cool. I love the concept. Like kind of the lab concept is really cool. And for anyone who hasn't been, Asheville is like the crown jewel of the East Coast. It's a very diamond in the rough place too, where not a lot of people know about it, but people don't quite realize like all things intersect here in the world of like mountain sports and outdoor tourism, plus access to trails and access to really amazing food. And we got a lot of good beer here, John, for all those people who enjoy IPAs. So
I was going to say, I'm hoping that you mentioned the craft beer scene.
It's next level. I joke with people, like we're in the Bible Belt. So like the running joke for me, and pun intended, right? Running joke is that we have more craft breweries than we have churches here in Asheville. And that's saying something. So it's kind of nuts. And it's interesting because I liked it. I mean, I was just in Flagstaff for Cocodona doing some media stuff there, but like they had decent beer, but I'll be honest with you. I'm like, man, I guess I'm in hog. It's kind of next level what we have going on in Asheville for sure. So
I think I was last in Asheville in 2016. I want to say I did the Biltmore half marathon. I did some running around that area, and man, it was beautiful. Maybe not 2016, 2017, whatever it was almost 10 years ago. And I follow Erin Bailey, who is a creator and owns an agency and talent management agency. And she took her clients from Momentum Management to Asheville for a brand trip. And it was so cool to see Asheville through the lens of somebody like her who has spent a lot of time there, but, you know, has such pride of the hometown trails and roads and places, and particularly following the devastation that occurred there. I think the last time we spoke, you weren't on water, I believe. You didn't have a water supply.
So Helene was pretty nuts for the area. Like there are still trails that are like a 10-minute drive from my house that I finally got a chance to run up to, because the section I can actually run on the section of the MST, Mountain to Sea Trail, up to that spot. And as soon as you get to this one section, which is my favorite long run stomping grounds, it's really close to the house. It's got everything I want and need in a long run. There's like 50 trees blown down in like 100 yards still that needs to be. And I'm not talking like little things here. They're all of these trees are like bigger than me and then some. And, you know, to your point, I don't think we had power for 20 something days. It was 30 days without power, 30 something days without power, 30 days without internet. And then it was close to 60 days without running water that you could drink coming out of the faucet. So yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah.
But the rebuilding has been happening. What's the boots on the ground have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely happening. I mean, there are things that I don't think will be back for a long time. There were certain areas, especially around watersheds, that were like severely impacted. Like in Asheville, it's like you kind of see remnants of it, but you don't. But if you get out into some of the harder hit areas like Swannanoa, which is just east of Asheville and west of Black Mountain, it's still extremely hard hit. And then there are some little towns like out on lakes and where the water kind of comes in, like tiny little places that I don't think will ever exist again. So, it's happening, but like, yeah. And I will tell you, like, I'm a bit insulated because I'm kind of right east of downtown, like in town proper. So, I have to physically drive to places that were impacted to really see the impact. But that being said, like the nature center is right down the street from my house and they just opened it last month, and you have to take the bridge that goes across the Swannanoa River to get to it doesn't exist anymore. It's completely washed out. You have to take some like crazy roundabout area to get to it. But like, it's a place that we love to take my son to, and it was closed for 6 months, and like most of the animals survived, but it was definitely a weird thing where they were having to like cart in supplies through random ways to feed, anyways, like it's a tangent, like it's happening, but I will tell you, I don't feel like it's happening fast enough, but I honestly have not been impacted enough to like know what like the severity of the situation really is. Like we're talking 8 months later, and it's still, Asheville's not back to normal for sure. So
yeah, well, hoping that the rebuild continues and that people keep going back there, and, we stimulate the local economy and people get to experience all that the area has to offer from roads and trails and IPA standpoint. I'm not an IPA guy, but everything else sounds good to me.
We have all the other beers too, but our IPA game is in my opinion on point. So
fair enough. All right, let's move to the running part of the discussion. With a beard like that, you were guaranteed to become a trail runner. When did running enter the picture? Was it pre-beard?
No, I've always had facial hair. Let's just say it's taken a long time to get it to this status. And it's very much I trim it slightly a couple times a year, but I have not done anything to my face except for trim the mustache for almost a decade now. Wow. So I've got trail running. Let me think. I've been running ultras for, I guess it's close to, I've 8 or 9 years of running ultras. I started getting back into running. I'm 35. I got back into running when I turned 30. And that was, I used to run in high school. I ran the cross country, so the 5K, and I would do the 800 and the mile. Was never competitive in any of that, but I enjoyed doing it. I definitely scored points for my team in cross country, but I was I'm 7th or 8th. You know what I mean? I was never the guy running at the front. And, I fell out of love with running. I fell in love with backpacking, hiking, ultralight backpacking for a long time. And then got back and kind of started running again. I turned 30. I've told this story before, but basically it's a classic country song. My mom died, my dog died, I turned 30 all in a 2-week period. And in that moment I had this I was
something about a truck.
Yeah, I owned it. Well, I ended up with a truck after the fact, but yes,
of course, yeah. That was implied. Sorry.
No, for sure. And honestly, it was just kind of an awakening for me where I was I was smoking cigarettes. I was just not treating myself well. And I just kind of had this aha moment of I need to do something. And it's that classic turn 30 and try to get fit again. Cause when you're in your 20s, you could pretty much do all kinds of not so nice things to your body and still be in relatively decent fitness. And that just kind of started it. I remember I was training for a Spartan race, and then I read Born to Run, and I was oh, wait a minute, these are my people, and so then I kind of that's how I found out about ultras. And then from there, I just kind of put in the work. And I think it was I had some setbacks with a couple injuries, but I think 2 years later I ran Way Too Cool. And then that was it. I pretty much drunk the Kool-Aid. It was a classic. I crossed the finish line on my first 50K, was walking on the edges of my feet, within 10 minutes, I was having a hard time walking. And then within an hour, I was oh man, when do I get to do this again? In excruciating pain. So
sure, yeah. So Way Too Cool was your first 50K?
Yep. Yeah. Lived in California for 15 years. So I cut my teeth
What an
there.
awesome trail system, and out in Cool and Yolo County.
Yeah.
What a fun community out there. Okay, so you cross the finish line, everything hurts and I'm dying. Okay, I want to do this again. Talk to me about the evolution of, okay, you're about to run 100 miles in a couple of weeks. By the time this episode comes out, you're Western States qualifier in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm running a 70 miler in like 3 weeks at Laurel Highlands. So
Only 70 miles.
yeah, only.
Talk to me about the evolution from 50Ks to the longer distance stuff. Where did that come from? Why did that happen?
Yeah, well, the 100 miler goal, the miler, I guess, is how the Euros call it these days. They just call it the miler. But the 100-mile goal, it was kind of always there. And then I've had a lot of setbacks. So like I was going to run Rio del Lago like 2 years after I ran my first 50K. I broke my big toe like 3 weeks before the race. And this is back when like you could just show up. Like literally I was about to sign up for the race. So I didn't run it then. I've had 3 hernia surgeries. I had 3 hernia surgeries in 5 years. So then like there's a big setback there, and so finally like I got to the point where I could, where I was going to toe the line, and I was actually moving back to the East Coast at that point. But I mean, I ran Lake Sonoma a couple times. Love that race. It was local for me because I was living in Sonoma County. Ran Canyons twice, the 100K, and that was before the UTMB acquisition. So that was back when I ran it when it was the double out and back. So you started at Forest Hill, ran like up to wherever they turned you around. Sometimes it was Deadwood, sometimes it was farther up, and then ran you back down to Rucky Chucky and then turned you around and ran you back up to Forest Hill. And then I ran the uphill year, which is the year where they start in Auburn. You start in Auburn and go up to China Wall on the course that exists now. Now they run from China Wall down to Auburn. And it's kind of like the perfect tune-up for Western States. But before I got into running ultras, like I went and spectated Western States 2 years. It was the year that Timmy broke the course record that Scott Jurek had set. Tim Olson.
It's 2015? No, Rob Carr won that.
It was 2014, 2013, 2014, one of those 2 years. Then I was there the year that Rob ran him down, like almost ran him down on the track, like they were within 2 minutes of each other. And then I was there the year that Rob Carr won. And so like, let's just say that Rob had an impression on me, from the beard. Like I love Rob's style. And
you guys was like brothers, actually.
I was hooked, man. Like I literally was drinking from a Kool-Aid from the fire hose, like on year one of like, I found out what Western States was. I realized it was literally a 40-minute drive. Like I could be at a track from my house in Placerville at the time in 40 minutes. And like that first year, I drove up to Robinson Flat. I drove to Bath Road. I went to Forest Hill. I went down to the river back when you could actually just get down, like when it was easy to get down to the river. Then I went to the finish line and I was just like, this is so freaking cool. And it would amaze me, like, the way these people are still moving at mile 70 as they're coming into the river. I was just like, okay, this is amazing. And that kind of lit the fire of like, I've always had this, like, let's be like smart about your progression, like I ran a 50K. Then the next year, well, I was kind of dumb. I ran a 50 miler and 100K within 3 weeks of each other. I ran Lake Sonoma and Miwok within like 3 weeks of each other. And I will suggest to anyone out there listening, do not do this. Like it was so dumb. Like it's one thing if you actually have ran the distance to try to do something stupid like that. But like I suffered mightily at Miwok, and I could just tell because my Lake Sonoma was still in the legs. But yeah, man, I suffered a lot early and kind of earned the legs that's required to do the distance. Figured out I was kind of like, at the time it was, we're talking about like the early aughts. So I'm like, training philosophy was just kind of like run for an hour during the week and then just go big on the weekends. And like I'm early in my running as far as that goes. So, you throw anything at the wall and it's going to stick. And I finally got like kind of better at thinking about training philosophy, studying about training, and slowly but surely over the last, like, call it 8 years, got myself in a place where felt like I could run 100 miles. And so 3 years ago, I ran Grindstone before the UTMB acquisition. There's a theme here with these races and really enjoyed it. Like I kind of always had Western States has been on the radar and then Hard Rock's been on the radar. So it's kind of, I'm on that classic trying to run the two hardest 100 milers in North America to get into. And so, yeah, Grindstone was my first Hard Rock qualifier. And then the next year I ran 2 hard hundreds, one of them being Hellbender here in North Carolina. And I would say for anybody, it's an amazing race. And this year's course was a little bit different because of the damage from Helene, but I'm excited for them to bring back the OG course hopefully next year. And I've got a bone to pick with that course. But like, that's kind of, I mean, I've just been kind of failing forward with this thing and learning from my experience. And in the last 8 years, I've kind of realized like there's a certain level that I have to be at fitness wise. And I kind of told myself, maybe it was 5 years ago, I was like, I want to always be fit enough to just like mess around and jump into a 50 miler. So like, that means that there's a weekly mileage that I'm hitting every single week. Sometimes there's workouts, sometimes there's not. If I'm training for something, I do workouts. And now like I ended up getting a coaching cert and I coach some athletes, but I definitely very much, I'm a quintessential midpacker. So
yes, a passionate amateur, as we call them. Okay. So you've always also been in the business world. Your LinkedIn says, I help businesses and founders find their why and develop their mission, vision, and values. You also host the Midpacker podcast. You've been at some brands in a VP or C-level role over the last few years. Talk to me about the parallels of business and endurance, and specifically around helping businesses and founders find their why, right? My other podcast, For the Long Run, is specifically aimed at the why and understanding the why and how a strong understanding of your own why enables you to go further and faster and do more than what you think is possible. And I think the same holds true in business, but I'd love to hear it from you. Like, why is that what's on your LinkedIn bio?
Yeah. So I'll start with something that I've said for the last, like, say, decade in general, when it comes to business, especially on the marketing side of things, is like consistency over time equals success, right? Like, and then that holds true in endurance. So I think like if you can show up every single week, put in X amount of work and stay healthy, then man, you're going to see some gains, right? You're going to see some things happen, right? And the same thing is true in business. And I learned this because I started a company with 4 of my really good friends. And in doing so, like I have a degree in film and video production. So like I became the de facto marketing guy. And then in this process of building this brand, like I just kind of earned, I don't want to be like I earned an MBA, but I earned an MBA in the School of Hard Knocks. Like I didn't go to a school to learn these case studies in business and like how to operate a business. Like I learned from failing forward every single day. Right. And, we grew that brand. It was a fun journey. The journey ended. And I kind of went on to help another company that a friend of mine founded. And then I got to a point where I realized the thing that I loved the most about when I was building the company was called Legion of Bloom. It's a cannabis company in California. The one thing I loved the most about it was when we figured out how important the mission, the vision, and the values were within the organization. And then that became something that allowed us to make decisions in a framework that made it very easy. Well, easy from a trying to grow a business standpoint, but like easy, at least in a framework as far as decision-making goes. And I realized after that journey ended that was the part that I really enjoyed, was establishing, honing, and developing the company culture within the organization. And so that's kind of something that I've been on a journey through I started Luminescent Strategies is my consulting company this year or late last year, but I've kind of been in this journey over the last like 2 years of like honing this, like, oh wow, like I'm really passionate about this. And then that's what I've kind of continued to do. And what I strive to do is to help organizations that either don't have a strong why or do have a strong why, but have kind of lost, as they grow and scale, you kind of start, you can lose that and fragment that. And I have frameworks and things that I've developed that allows like an ability to kind of take the short-term goals that you have and align that with the vision you have for the organization while like staying true to your core values. And I think if you spin this back into running, like it's really important to understand why, especially in an ultra distance or even in a like if you're trying to run a fast 5K, you better have a pretty strong reason why you want to continue to just be in pain for, let's just call it 18 minutes of your life, right? Or 15, if you're even fast, you're like 15 minutes. Like that shit's hard. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, like really understanding like why you're doing something and having a really strong foundation. And then that personal belief that comes from having a value set, like all of that can be wrapped into your endurance pursuits. It can also be wrapped into like your entrepreneurial pursuits. It can also be wrapped into like just how you live your life and how you carry yourself on a day-to-day basis.
I want to press on the ability to explore this within a business, because so often in business, people are obsessed with the bottom line and they're obsessed with like what's in front of their nose. And sometimes zooming out to understand like where are we going and why are we going there is critical. And we're in a place in time when like brands on LinkedIn get no visibility, but people on LinkedIn get tons of visibility. So like some of it is around like, how do you even orient your team members and the people that are executing the day-to-day of what the company is doing? How do you get them bought in, and how do you get them excited, and how do you get them behind the why? Because there's so much value in unlocking employees as quote unquote influencers or brand evangelists, and you don't even have to pay them because you already are.
Yeah.
Right?
No, 100%. I mean, I think something that I learned when we were building my previous organization is that like everyone, and we did everything. We did manufacturing, distribution, production, and then we ran the brand. So we did sales for the brand too, and we did marketing for the brand. And I realized that like everyone got it. And it was because of a handful of core members of our organization that really like lived out the values of our company prior to even putting them on paper. And I think what happens as companies scale is like mission, vision, values. It's like so tripe. It's such a it's like company culture, like all this stuff. It's so like I mean I can't even come up with the right adjective to describe like how woo it sounds. At the end of the day, like what you end up with is it's not a nice to have. It's like a necessary part of growth and scaling an organization. It's literally a growth hack. And to your point, like if you're working for a company and you feel like you're valued, and if you're working for a company and you feel like those values, you align strongly with the values that are inherent in the organization, it's not a clock in, clock out job for you. Like it's something that you can get passionate about. And that's what's really important about articulating that within an organization, making sure you have a strong nucleus around whether it's the founder or the C-suite that understand what those core values are, and then can incept those core values into the rest of the team. Because what you end up with are these people who like, you don't even have to ask, like, as soon as you ask, you know, it's like in America, like they don't really do this in other countries, but like the asking like what you do is like a thing that we do here in America. You know, it's like one of the third questions you'll ask somebody when you meet them for the first time is like, oh, what do you do for work? Right. And if you ask someone who's a part of an organization that really values the work that they're doing, like, man, like you can tell that they're just like, you can tell that they love what they do and they love why they do it. And it's not that like, it's not really what they do. It's more why they're doing it and why the organization exists is what people really get behind. As opposed to being like, yeah, like I'm a mortgage broker. Yeah, you know, like I just write mortgages and then I do these other things that I'm really passionate about, right? So it's like, I don't know. I as far as like how you get the team involved in that, that can be very personal to the organization. But at the end of the day, the values that you have for your organization can't just be something you write on a piece of paper and that are highlighted on your website. It has to be something that's really like inherent in how you operate and how you act and how you communicate inside and outside. Outside to say your audience or your customer base or your client base, and then inside as far as like how you treat the people that work for you. And I think it's really important. Like I think a culture first organization is going to have, I mean, I've seen it. They have higher retention. Companies that hire for values first have people that really care about the mission and what they're doing. And like, it's something that comes up a lot is like hire for soft skills, train the hard skills, right? Like I think people get so caught up in like, where did you come from? Where did you learn? What have you done? What have you show me the physical, tangible things you've done? And I think like that is definitely important. You have to make sure that someone can actually do the thing you need them to do for you. At the end of the day, a lot of people have those skill sets, and it really just comes down to like, how are they aligning to the values that you want represented within your organization?
How did you come to this?
Well, the hard way, for one. Like, I watched what happened in my previous organization as we were growing, and I realized that if it didn't get onto paper, if we didn't actually like say these are what they are, then like things were going to start to fray a little bit. And they did. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we kind of went through a process of trying to articulate that. And what it really did for us was allow us to put a real focus on the brand. Because prior to that, the mentality between a lot of my founders was like, oh, we need a product for everyone. And then we really quickly realized through our values that like, and I think you know this as well, like a product for everyone is a product for no one.
For no one.
So like we realized very quickly, like, oh, wait a minute, but we have these values. So if we can align these things within the product, then like we will attract people to the brand and they will stick with our brand because they align with the values that we have. So like, you know, I saw firsthand what happens when you do ESG, right? Like environmental, what is it? Man, I'm like going to spit business acronyms and not be able to back them up. But like we wrapped environmental give back behind our product. So like if you bought our product, we would donate to these not-for-profits that were doing work around certain environmental causes that we aligned with. Like I literally saw retention in our customer base go up like 20%. Like that's a tangible, like, okay, wait a minute. There's a causality here between understanding why it's important to have core values and then why it's also important to speak through the brand to your audience through your core values. So like that was an aha moment for me. And then like I read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And it was the first time that I'd seen like an operational playbook for an entrepreneur. Like this is how you run your company while staying true to your mission, your vision, and your values, right? And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then, you know, I mean, I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. If you put I help people find their why on your LinkedIn, you've probably read several Simon Sinek books. And I just realized like it's the why you do things that really matter. And the how and the what is kind of, I mean, they're important, yeah. But like if you can get people, organizations, brands, like if you get them behind the why you're doing something, like figuring out the how and the what is the easy part. You know, like it just kind of comes naturally because there's alignment between values. And once you kind of have that, and like you'll see that like even when you create a friend group, if the friend group is aligned between values and things that you really care about, like it's going to be you're going to have really strong relationships with those people, you know? So I don't know, like it was kind of a trial by fire for me and like being an entrepreneur for a really long time and realizing like, I mean, the product is cool, you know, product is kind of sexy, but like really it's that esoteric shit, man, you know, like the whole, like, how do you get someone to go the extra mile for you? Well, first you go the extra mile for them. Right. And it's kind of like that whole like give and take. And that's kind of my kind of philosophy behind building company culture is like articulate your values, live by your values. Sometimes you have to work really hard and then sometimes you have to play really well. And you need to do that within your organization.
Want more from the For the Long Run team? Our newsletter is your all-access pass to exclusive discounts from brand partners, exciting event updates, and handpicked videos and content from the For the Long Run team. Don't miss out on the good stuff. Subscribe at forthelong.run or hit the link in the show notes to stay in the loop. Hey, Jonathan here, and if you're tuning into Long Run Labs, chances are you're someone who's building something, a brand, a product, a community in the outdoor or endurance space. You know what it takes to push boundaries and think long term. But here's the question. Are you investing in yourself the way you invest in your business? That's where Eternal comes in. Eternal is a performance health company built specifically by people like us, for people like us. High performers who treat their lifestyle like their work, seriously. Whether you're a founder, marketer, athlete, or all three, Eternal's mission is to help you better understand and optimize your health for the long haul. Their Performance Physical is a 2-hour in-person assessment available in New York City or San Francisco, including metabolic testing, mobility assessments, over 70 blood biomarkers, and a full movement screen, all interpreted through the lens of endurance, performance, and female health for the women, not just general population averages. There's also the Foundations Plan, available in 7 states for now, with more coming every week, which starts with a deep blood panel and translates your biomarker data into an actionable plan, including what and when to eat, your supplement needs, all based on your training, and personalized and reviewed by sport-informed physicians and dietitians. It's also guided strategically by experts like Dr. Stacy Sims to help with the focus on women's health. Excitingly, I've also been working with Eternal behind the scenes as a consultant, and I'm proud to partner with them here on the show too. This is the kind of personalized, hands-on healthcare I wish I had access to years ago, especially now that I'm squarely in my mid-30s, and I know it'll resonate with this audience. So if you're building something ambitious, don't leave your own health as the bottleneck. Check out eternal.co, that's C-O, and use code LRL for 10% off your performance or foundations plan. That's eternal.co, and tell them Long Run Labs sent you. I want to press on something that you said, talking about the knowing your niche and not trying to be for everyone. And in turn, you know, if you're for everyone, you're for no one. You're the host of the Midpacker podcast. So that's a niche within a niche, right? Like
sure, yeah.
A specific subset of runners within trail running, within running. How did you get to deciding that that was the niche that you were going to serve? And what did the creation process look like of your podcast?
So it's an interesting story because I had been incubating the idea for like a couple months, you know, call it like 60 days or so, thinking about it and realizing like, I know it existed, but it just did like what I listened to was all like, it was mostly people having conversations with the tip of the spear, you know, like it's mostly people talking with, you know, pro high level professional athletes, right? People getting paid by brands or like, you know, the best is the best. And, you know, there's race previews. There's all these fun things that go around in media with trail running that, I mean, I gobble it up. I'm like a super fan for the sport. And I was like, but yeah, no one's actually telling the stories that represent me, right? That represent like whatever you want to call the 99%, right? And like, I've been thinking about this and I was like a early member in Free Trail and what Dylan and Harmony and Ryan were doing, had been showing up to their office hours a lot. It got to the point where like Dylan would host these things weekly and it would get to the point where like he just needed a week off and they would tag me in. So then I would host these office hours. So I was like building up this rapport and like kind of enjoying leading these kind of conversations and having bringing different types of conversations to the table. And I was thinking like, man, I'm thinking I want to start a podcast. At the same time, my journey with my previous company was basically coming to an end. And I own the marketing department in that organization. And so now all of a sudden I have this like I have this creative side of me and a business operation side of me that like, it's a niche that I'm not scratching. And then like, I was like, I really need like a creative outlet. And I had mentioned to Dylan, I was like, hey, you know, I was thinking about starting a podcast. And he's like, literally the week that I was going to pitch to him, like, hey, here's this concept. He like texts me. He's like, hey man, are you still keen to do a pod? And I'm like, actually I am. Here's the idea that I was talking about. He's like, oh, that's so funny because the only real critique that they've been getting is that his podcast focused too much on the front of the pack. And they really need something. They were looking to bring in something that could speak to the back of the pack. In the middle of the pack. And so it was just like very serendipitous. And then within like 2 weeks, I had it off the ground. And it started off by like, you know, and Ryan was a big help as far as helping me on the production side. I have a degree in film and video production. So like from the beginning, like I do all the things. Like I edit all the episodes. Like they definitely like helped me set up the hosting and that kind of thing, which I'd never done before, and helped me kind of walk through like at least how they do their, you know, how he does his workflow. But at the end of the day, like I already had a handful of people that I had been engaging with in the free trail community. So that started off as like my first, call it dozen guests. And that was kind of my concept is I was like, hey, let me just stick to this. I think I heard this on like the Tim Ferriss show when he started his pod. He was like, he's like, I agreed that I'm going to do this for 8 episodes and see how I like it, you know? And so I started and like, I'm on I just dropped episode 79 of the pod. There's been a handful of other things projects I've done within the pod that don't count toward that number. So I think we're at somewhere closer to like 86 or 87 episodes. And I've been putting them out weekly, John, for, you know, call it 90 weeks. Cause I think I missed 3 weeks in the last like 85 episodes. And yeah, and like I said, I really wanted to be able to tell like the stories of the middle of the pack, but also like so many people have so many cool things that they're doing with their running. And so it's like, what is there, like kind of to your point, you're like, well, for the long run, it's about people's whys. Like inadvertently, a lot of that comes up in my episodes. Like I've had episodes with people who, this one guy ran like 200 and some 300 or 400 kilometers to raise money for leukemia in Australia. And it was just like, that's a really strong why, you know what I mean? And that's like, it was a really cool story. Like I've had countless stories like that, but then that's ultimately what comes up through talking with these individuals is that like, there's something that's driving them that goes far beyond like, I just want to go run an ultra marathon. You know what I mean? Because like, that's easy. Anyone can go run one of these things, but like to want to keep showing up time and time again, there's got to be something that makes you really want to push it to the edge a lot, you know? And that's what I find comes out of those conversations. You know, as far as like the niche, like I was just trying to talk to myself, if I'm being real with you. Like I have a solid 64% on ultra signups. So like I am my target audience, though I'm also like you mentioned, like I do all the things, man. Like I treat ultra running, like I try to be as professional about how I treat the sport. You know, my VO2 max is just like, you know, in the 60s or something. I don't know what it is, but like I just don't have
That's good. That's
I guess.
good.
I've never checked it. I'm just a 45-year-old guy trying to be as fit as I possibly can, man. So it's like, I'm better. Like I like to say 45 is the new 25. I am in better shape at 45 than I was at 25. So
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in better shape at 34 than I was at 24 when I was just getting into running, which yeah, if you take it seriously, you can go pretty far, even if it's not, you know, putting you at the front of the pack, which is fine.
And I know that's not my, I mean, there was a moment when I first started that I was like, oh, like I'll turn 40 and I'll just be like a really fit, fast master, you know? And then I realized really quickly, like the guys I was coming up in the sport in around me, I'm like, all these guys that are fast in their 30s are still going to be really freaking fast in their 40s and 50s. And so,
yeah,
you know, if I want to be like winning age groups, I'm like, I've just got to think about longevity and show up in my 60s because the vast majority of those people aren't still going to be running ultras when they're 60, you know?
Totally.
So, yeah.
So talk me through, a few months ago, we had a conversation around sponsorship and like how to think about podcast sponsorship for the first time. Like you said, you're about 90 episodes into it. For me, it was like, I didn't get sponsors until 60 or so in, but that was aided by the fact that there was a global pandemic and no races happening, and brands wanted to, you know, sponsor podcasts for the first time, at least in running more broadly. Talk to me about what you did what did we talk about? What did you do after that meeting, and the snowball effect of like John G took a bet on you and said, hey, we're going to sponsor this podcast. What happened next?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I've already reached out to you and thanked you for making the introduction. You made an introduction to Mike for me. And so I learned a couple things. So like I have a decent relationship with Kelly Newland. I heard her on a podcast and I had a conversation with her. And, you know, at the time I was pitching a deck and like, you know, whatever, it's like 8 slides, 9 slides, like whatever. And she's like, just make a one sheet. And I was like, okay, cool. So I made a one sheet, right? And I had the one sheet. We had a conversation. You know, getting in the room with Mike, it took some follow-up, right? And that's something that I will say, like, a lot of people get discouraged. You send one email and no one responds to you. One thing I learned when I was building my previous company, like, I'm the guy that will send you an email, follow up at the end of the week, and then you're going to get a follow-up from me every single week until you tell me to go away. If I want something from you, that's where I'm at, because I understand how email goes. I understand my inbox is the bane of my existence. So like, I can only imagine what it's like for everyone else. So like, you know, I just like kept following up, and like, obviously it's a warm intro. So I sat down with Mike, we talked, and he's like, listen, like, this is totally in line with what we do. Like, let's just figure something out, you know, like, let's do something for 6 months. Let's do something that's like, let's see if it works. Let's see if it's a good fit. And then from there, it's kind of like the lead domino thing that happens in investment. You know, like if you're a startup and you're trying to go for your series, whatever, seed round, whatever, like as soon as you get the first person to be okay with the idea and say they're going to give their money, it's so much easier to get other people to give you money. Right. And I feel like that's what happened. And then I also, like, after having the conversation with you, I realized that like I had the confidence to just put myself out there. And I knew that anyway, like you just have to be confident and put yourself out there. And I'm okay with no. But I think what happened was I thought about partnerships, and that's something that we had in our conversation, is like, what are the kind of partnerships that you think are going to be best for you and your audience? And like, that's where I kind of came up with a couple categories is like, I ended up bringing in a coffee sponsor. They're local, cooperative coffee roasters. They're local to Asheville. I just happened to like DM them through Instagram, and the founder, it's a small company. So the founder's like, hey, we were actually just talking about how we want to start sponsoring running podcasts. And he happens to be a runner. And so it was like, that was just serendipitous. And now we have a great relationship. I'm actually going, they're having like a 1-year anniversary for their cafe today. I'm going to go there right after this recording.
Cool.
You know, I had built a relationship with Bare Butt Wipes. The founder, Sam, I met him when they were tabling at this Old Fort Strong event, which was to raise money for the city of Old Fort after Helene. And then what happened is he listened to the podcast, saw that John G was sponsoring the podcast, and he reached out. I was like, hey, are you looking for sponsors? Like, let's connect. I mean, you know, that's not like, they're like my smallest, whatever you want to call from a monetary standpoint, sponsor. But like, I love supporting a small brand like that, that's like built by runners for runners. And then like Hyperlight was the same way. Like I'm working with Hyperlight Liquid Performance. Love that stuff. It's like straight rocket fuel. But like I commented on some of their content because I saw like what they were doing with their brand. And the founder was like, hey, I love the pod. Let us know if
Emery?
you need it. Yeah, Emery, exactly. Emery's amazing, right? And I'm like, Jeremy and Emery both are great dudes. But Emery was like, hey, I love what you're doing with the pod. Let us know how we can support. Something like to that effect where I'm like, wow, like I'm not doing outbound here. This is me just like commenting and liking their content. And then they're reaching out to me. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I'll have a conversation. And it turns out that like he had listened to what I did leading up to Western States last year, which is this revisiting Unbreakable thing that I did with one of my buddies, Matt Van Delsum, and we had Hal on, and we had, oh my gosh, I'm mind blanking, the guy that produced Unbreakable, JB Benna. We had JB Benna on, and then and he was like from the producer side. Hal was actually like in the freaking race in the movie, and then we had Dylan talk about what that did, because he was in the arc after Unbreakable. Right. You know, Dylan's career kind of, so like it was a really cool miniseries we did. And Emery was just like, bro, I loved that miniseries. And so we kind of connected on that. And so it's kind of this like, it was one of these things where like I needed it because I'd been doing the pod for so long. I would continue to do it. I would spend, like it's 4 to 6 hours of my week every single week. And when you do all of it, like if you're not outsourcing any bit of it, like it can be a grind. Like there are weeks where I'm like, I definitely am stoked to put out the pod. And there are weeks where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to white knuckle through this because I have the interview, but like you still have to do all the back end work. Right. And so sometimes it just means it's going to be late nights. And I'll be honest with you now that I'm not retiring on podcast money anytime soon, John, but it's enough there that it makes it worth my time to do it. And then I love being able, like I said, all my brands that I work with are like made by runners, made by ultra runners for ultra runners. And most of them, besides John G is now a pretty large established brand. All of the brand partners that I have are like kind of scrappy startups that are really trying to like disrupt what's going on in the industry as far as the industry goes. And then the coffee roaster that I work with is like a local company that I really love just vibing with, because now I'm helping to support and bring business to a local organization. So gosh, I rambled a little bit there, John. Did I answer your question? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
What did you learn from that first domino to fall and then more dominoes falling after that? What's the like, so what?
To me, it's the realizing that like it takes time to build. And I know this, it goes back to consistency over time equals success, right? It takes time to build something that you feel like has enough value. And that's the thing that I think I was the most apprehensive about, was like, is there going to be enough value on the table? Because the last thing you want to do is like draw up a contract and have a conversation and pitch the brand and then have them be like, oh, this sounds good. And then like just the results be like, meh, And then it's also about having that conversation of like, these are the numbers. And like at the end of the day, how do you think? And I learned this from the episode you did on Second Nature with Aaron and Dylan, was like, how do you value these types of partnerships as a brand? And that was an eye open, like that right there. Cause that's what led me to say, like, I should just reach out to John and have a conversation with him. Cause I was like, I listened to you guys talk about this and I know this as someone who's done brand marketing, but then it's like, it took hearing it from someone else and then thinking about the situation I was in to say, well, how do you value this? Are you valuing this as like, I need to see dynamic results, or are you valuing this as a way to say, like a brand awareness play where you're like, I really value what you're doing, Troy. And then your audience is going to say like, hey, these guys are into supporting Troy. I like Troy. I should support the brand. And sometimes they're going to use the code and sometimes they're not. And that's just kind of like part and parcel with like doing the work, that like you're going to have these codes, they're going to bring in, it's going to show that something's working. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think what I learned from it was that like, it's okay to lean in. It's okay to put yourself out there. And back to the thing about niches, like sometimes your audience doesn't, you don't have to have, I think I was joking with you, like, I don't think I have a hell no audience, but I definitely don't have a hell yes audience yet. Right. And you don't have to have like ridiculous numbers in order to find alignment with brands, depending on what they're looking for.
Right. It's all about trust. It's like, do you have people that trust you?
Yeah.
And are they looking for your guidance on the things that you're knowledgeable about? So the conversation that you're referring to is the performance versus brand marketing discussion that I had with Aaron and Dylan. Dylan claims it's like the most listened to and most referenced episode of Second Nature.
It's very actionable. Well, I mean, think about it. Like it's relatively actionable stuff. Their target market is people on the business side of things. And then like, John, I was just like, oh, you're on Second Nature Slack. I'm on Second Nature. What's up, John? You want to have a conversation, bro? And you're like, yeah, let's. And I'm like, so like it led to action because I was like, hey, I should just like, at some point, John was where I was at. Like I should just reach out and ask for a little bit of advice because he's been in the situation I'm in right now. And I imagine like having a simple 30-minute conversation with him is going to make me feel better about do it, or at least give me some sort of actionable insights on how I can move forward. So
totally. Yeah, I appreciate that. It was a really fun conversation. And I was just chatting with Dylan yesterday on this podcast. And if you didn't listen to that one, it's because we dropped it on June 17th in a trio of 3 episodes, and it has probably since been buried since the beginning of this podcast. But the conversation we had with Dylan, I referenced the question that I asked him for the Second Nature 100 episodes podcast, where I said, Dylan, if you were a 23-year-old brand new professional athlete, like what would you do today versus what are you doing today? And so I flipped the question to say, give me guidance, give brands guidance as if you are a pro athlete with the visibility that you've had over the last 17 years as a pro athlete. And he basically said the same thing. He was like, I wish brands would sit their athlete team down and say, this is what we're going for. This is what we're striving for. This is how you can help us. And then fast forward 6 months, you actually answer that question of like, what were we going for? What did we do? Because if you can close the loop of action, reaction, and show people like what is the impact that you're having, they're going to want to create more of that impact, right? So I referenced the conversation that I was having with a brand partner that has, 12 products. And I asked them, I was like, what is the product that my code is being used the most for? A, out of curiosity, and B, because I wanted to know what is my audience resonating with and what should I lean into more and what should I lean into less. And so it's in the best interest of me to know that so that my performance with the brand partner is up to snuff, but like that's more money in the brand's pocket as well. So it's like, it's ultimately a win for everyone. And so his point was, if you can get the brand closing the loop on those discussions versus needing the partner to say, hey, I want to have a performance review. I want to know what is the code being used for. With you talk to Mike from John G, like, are the half tights the most popular thing? Should you be demoing and demonstrating how many pockets it has and the fact that it doesn't chafe? By the way, if it chafes, you should use Live Cushy, the sweet new anti-chafe. But like, what are the features and benefits that are resonating? What are the products that are resonating with the audience? And the comment that I made to him was like, if you're a shoe brand, it's kind of hard to know like what shoes are being purchased if you're, a $1 billion brand. But these smaller brands where it's e-commerce only, you have pretty good intel on, what people are buying at least, and hopefully what they're buying with your own code.
Yeah, it helps for me that 2 of my brands only have one product. So like at least that's like, that
coffee.
Yeah. Well, not even Hyperlight, they only have one SKU right now because they're so young. And then Bare Butt Wipes is just like, it's the wipe. That's all that's what they have, they have like merch, but
sure.
I think to your point with John G, like I've been getting their emails prior to, but like that's a good hack. If you have brand partners and you haven't signed up for their email funnel, like why not? Because like what happens is like I looked at my email, I was like, man, I need to do a John G ad read. Okay, like I've got some cool stuff that I just got at Cocodona. Maybe I'll do an ad read for this stuff. And then I look at my email and it's like 25% off Memorial Day sale. I'm like, well, I know what's going to be in my ad read now because like, hey, this is what they're marketing. I should like follow suit, right? And be a part of what they're doing. And it's kind of a good way to get in front of like what their marketing strategy is for their specific products. But to your point, like having those conversations are like also really, really important. And I try to have them with the brand partners. I will say it's tough. It's probably the same thing, right? Because like I know you work with Puma, they're a huge company, right? I work with these small startups where it's just like 1 or 2 people. So like getting their time might be just as hard as getting time with whoever it is that's your contact at the big brand. Like there's kind of this like interesting like juxtaposition of like, how do you set up and get that quality time with the right people so you can get the information you need from them?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the managing expectations and setting expectations of like part of what you're signing up for in a brand partnership with me is like, we're going to have this midway point check-in. And if you don't want it, we don't have to have it, but it's only hurting you kind of a thing. And so yeah, it's like, who would turn down the discussion because like I know what a successful partnership looks like. And the only purpose of that midway check-in is to continue to create a successful partnership. And so it's foolish if the brand doesn't want to do that. It's just it's a waste of money if you don't.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's definitely, I mean, data is actionable.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Troy, this has been a blast. For those who enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more from Troy, you can check out his podcast, the Midpacker Pod, under the Free Trail Network, or you can go to my dad's podcast. My dad, Lee Levitt, has a podcast called Thoughts on Selling. Go figure, my apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And he and Troy had a wonderful discussion over on the Thoughts on Selling podcast, much more on the business side as well. But go check that out. And Troy, appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Jonathan, it was my pleasure. And I want to shout out to Senior Levitt. He is, dude, your dad's the man, John. I really enjoyed getting to have a conversation with him, and like, what a cool dude. And obviously, like you said, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So
he is the man. I'm going to have him on this podcast.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you should. That's going to be interesting in general. And I can't wait to get a backseat to the dynamic. There'll be a little bit of like y'all's relationship dynamics will come out. And I'm excited to see that because like I found your dad to be extremely courteous, thoughtful, sincere, like all the things that you want in a...
All the things that I'm not.
So, yeah, man. Jonathan, I appreciate you having me on, brother.
Of course. Likewise. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there. This show is produced by Dylan Delaney of Delaney Video LLC, with musical composition by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound, and managed overall by Emily Holland of Wild Poppy Creative.